There is a moment every evening in Tagaytay that still catches me off guard. The rain has usually stopped by then. The road outside is wet and shining, and the air smells like wood smoke, coffee, and something frying in garlic. I sit on the little covered porch in front of my house with a mug in my hand. Across the lane, somebody is laughing. A child is chasing a dog. A motorbike rattles past, then everything settles again. And almost every night, someone calls out to me, "Have you eaten?" Not hello, not how are you, not what are you doing. Have you eaten? After 11 years in the Philippines, I finally understand what that question really means. My name is Robert Hale. I am 72 years old. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, spent 38 years repairing commercial refrigeration systems, and retired with a pension that looked decent on paper and felt smaller every year. I came to the Philippines when I was 61. I told everyone I was moving because my money would go further. That was true, it just was not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I was lonely in a way I did not know how to admit. I had been divorced for 9 years. My son lived in Colorado and had a life of his own. My daughter was in North Carolina, raising 2 children and working full-time. We loved each other. There was no dramatic family feud, no slammed doors, no final phone call. Sometimes distance happens quietly. A missed Thanksgiving becomes 2. A weekly phone call becomes every other Sunday. Then you start saying things like, "They're busy," because that sounds better than saying, "I do not know where I fit anymore." I had a 2-bedroom condo outside Dayton. It was clean. It was paid off. It was also so quiet that I could hear the refrigerator cycle on from the other side of the living room. I would wake up, make coffee, turn on the television, and leave it running until bedtime. I did not even watch most of it. I just needed another human voice in the room. You can be grateful for your life and still feel invisible inside it. That is something I wish more men my age would say out loud. The financial part was getting harder too. My pension was $2,140 a month before deductions. Social Security helped, but property tax, insurance, prescriptions, utilities, and groceries kept climbing. A new roof assessment hit the condo association. Then my supplemental health insurance increased again. I wrote every expense down on a yellow legal pad. After the bills, I had $386 left. $386. That was supposed to cover gas, clothes, repairs, gifts for the grandkids, a meal out, and anything unexpected. I was not starving, I know that. Plenty of people had it worse. But I could see the shape of the years ahead, and it scared me. Not one big catastrophe, just a slow shrinking, a smaller Christmas, fewer visits, putting off the dentist, pretending I did not need new glasses. I tried everything before I considered leaving the country. I sold my pickup and bought an older sedan. I changed insurance companies. I stopped eating out. I canceled cable and learned how to stream shows through my daughter's account. I even looked at moving to a cheaper town in Indiana. I toured one apartment that smelled like damp carpet and cigarette smoke. The manager showed me a coin-operated laundry room in the basement and said, "Most of our residents are seniors, so it stays pretty quiet." I remember standing there under a flickering fluorescent light, looking at 6 plastic chairs lined up against a wall. I thought, is this it? Is this what I am working toward? I went home and started watching videos about retiring abroad. At first, it was just curiosity. Mexico, Ecuador, Portugal, Thailand. The Philippines kept appearing because so many people spoke English and because the numbers looked possible. Then I found a video made by a retired electrician from Michigan. He was not rich. He did not live in a resort. He stood in a simple kitchen and showed his monthly expenses written on a whiteboard. Rent, electricity, internet, food, transportation. He lived on less than I did and seemed more alive than I felt. That sent me down the rabbit hole. I joined 3 Facebook groups. I read expat forums until 2 in the morning. I learned about visas, health insurance, banking, exchange rates, typhoons, power outages, and the difference between visiting a place and actually living there. I also read every warning I could find. Do not lend money you cannot afford to lose. Do not buy property in someone else's name. Do not assume friendliness means romance. Do not confuse being treated warmly with being treated foolishly. I know, I know. Famous last words. Still, I did not book a one-way ticket. I came for 30 days first. I landed in Manila in August. The heat hit me before I reached the taxi. It was thick, wet, and immediate. By the time I got to my hotel, my shirt was stuck to my back, and I was wondering whether I had made the stupidest decision of my life. Manila was too much for me. Too loud, too crowded, too fast. A man I met online suggested I spend a few days in Tagaytay. He said it was cooler, greener, and easier for an older person who did not want city chaos. The drive up changed everything. Concrete thinned into trees, the air cooled. Small fruit stands appeared along the road. I saw pineapples stacked in pyramids, steam rising from roadside pots, and families eating together under tin roofs while rain hammered down outside. My first rental was a furnished one-bedroom house behind a larger family home. It cost 18,000 pesos a month, which at the time was roughly $400. $400. It had cream-colored walls, a small kitchen, a fan that clicked when it turned, and a narrow porch looking toward a row of banana plants. The shower had weak pressure. The mattress was too firm. The neighbor's rooster seemed to believe sunrise began at 3:45 in the morning, and I loved it. Not instantly. Let me be honest about that. The first 6 months were difficult in ways I had not expected. I missed predictable systems. I missed understanding every joke. I missed walking into a store and knowing exactly where everything was. I hated waiting in lines without knowing whether I was in the right line. I hated losing internet during a storm. I hated discovering that maybe later could mean anything from 2 hours to never. There were days I felt like a guest who had stayed too long. There were also days I felt embarrassed by how helpless I was. A leaking pipe could become a 3-person discussion. A bank transfer could take half a day. I once spent 20 minutes trying to explain that I wanted unsweetened iced tea and ended up with something bright green that tasted like melted candy. I drank it anyway. The family in the main house helped me more than I deserved. The mother, Liza, showed me which market stall had the best vegetables. Her husband, Nestor, found a plumber when my bathroom flooded. Their oldest boy taught me how to load phone credit. Their youngest daughter corrected my terrible pronunciation and laughed every time I tried again. At first, I kept track of every favor. That is how I was raised. Somebody helps you, you pay them back. Somebody brings food, you return the container with something inside. Somebody gives you a ride, you offer gas money. But here, the accounting was different. When Liza brought over a bowl of balalo during a cold rain, she did not want repayment. When Nestor fixed the loose gate, he waved away the money. When their relatives arrived for a birthday, they pulled up another plastic chair and put a plate in my hands before I could ask whether I was invited. I was invited because I was there. That took me years to understand. In America, independence had become a kind of armor for me. I did not ask for help because I did not want to owe anyone. I did not show up unannounced because I did not want to intrude. I did not talk about money, fear, or health because those were private matters. Then I moved to a place where people noticed whether my curtains had opened that morning. At first it felt intrusive. Later it felt like being seen. The turning point came during my 3rd year. I woke up one morning with pain in my chest and left arm. Not sharp pain, pressure, heavy and strange. I sat on the edge of the bed telling myself it was indigestion because I did not want to make a fuss. Nestor saw me through the open door and knew something was wrong before I said anything. Within minutes, his brother had brought the car around. Liza packed my identification, water, and medication into a bag. Their son called the hospital. Nobody asked whether I wanted help. They just moved. It turned out not to be a heart attack. It was an irregular rhythm made worse by dehydration and stress. I stayed overnight for observation. When I woke up the next morning, there were 6 people in the room. 6. Liza had brought rice porridge. Nestor was asleep in a chair. A cousin I barely knew had driven in from Cavite. Someone had placed a small bag of oranges beside my bed. I remember looking around and feeling almost angry, not at them. At all the years, I had convinced myself that needing people was weakness. My own children called as soon as they heard. They were worried. They wanted details. They asked whether I should come home. I understood why. But when my daughter said, "Dad, who is there with you?" I looked at the people crowded around that hospital room and said, "Family." The word came out before I had time to examine it. Family. That did not mean they replaced my children. Nobody replaces your children. Love is not a chair with only one person allowed to sit in it. It meant something else. It meant I had stopped being a foreign man renting a house behind theirs. I had become part of the daily circle. Over the years, that circle widened. I became Uncle Robert to children who were not related to me. I attended graduations, baptisms, funerals, weddings, and birthdays where 3 generations shared one table. I learned that a serious conversation could happen while somebody peeled mangoes. I learned that grief did not always ask for privacy. Sometimes it asked for company. I also learned not to romanticize any of it. Families here argue. They disappoint each other. Money creates tension. Obligations can feel heavy. Some relatives take advantage. Some people confuse generosity with an unlimited supply. I made mistakes. I lent money once that I never got back. I said yes too quickly because I wanted to be liked. I paid for a repair without getting a clear price first. I trusted one person who told me he could handle paperwork faster, and all he handled was my cash. That cost me 35,000 pesos. 35,000 pesos. I was ashamed, mostly because I had read every warning and still believed I was too smart to fall for one. But that experience taught me something important. Feeling like family does not mean abandoning boundaries. Real family should survive the word no. The people who cared about me did. Nestor was the one who said it plainly. You help when you can, not when it destroys you. That sentence stayed with me. For a long time, I thought belonging meant proving my usefulness, paying for dinner, covering school supplies, helping with medicine, saying yes. Eventually, I understood that what made me part of the family was not the money. It was presence. It was showing up when Liza's mother died and sitting quietly in a plastic chair until morning. It was helping Nestor sand a door even though he could have finished faster without me. It was teaching one of the boys how to use basic hand tools. It was remembering birthdays. It was listening to the same story twice because the person telling it needed to tell it twice. And they gave the same thing back to me. Presence. When I had cataract surgery, someone stayed with me. When my pension deposit was delayed, nobody treated me differently. When I went through a period of missing home so badly that I considered leaving, they did not guilt me into staying. They said, "Go see your children. We will be here when you come back." That is when I knew it was real. I returned to Ohio after 5 years away. My condo had been sold long before, so I stayed with my daughter. Everything was familiar and strange at the same time. Wide roads, quiet neighborhoods, giant grocery stores, cold air conditioning. My grandchildren were older. My daughter had more gray in her hair. My son flew in for a weekend, and we sat outside talking until nearly midnight. I had worried they would resent the life I had built so far away. Instead, my daughter said something I will never forget. "You seem more like yourself now. Not younger, not richer, not happier every second. More like myself." That was exactly right. The Philippines did not rescue me. A country cannot do that. It did not erase my regrets, repair every family distance, or protect me from getting older. What it gave me was a different way to understand a good life. I used to measure security by how little I needed from other people. Now I measure it by how many people would notice if I did not show up. There is dignity in independence. There is also dignity in interdependence. That was the word I had been missing, interdependence. Not being a burden, not being rescued. Giving and receiving in a rhythm that changes depending on who is strong that day. Some months, I am the one who helps. Other months, I am the one who needs a ride to the clinic. Sometimes I pay for the groceries. Sometimes someone leaves a plate of food at my door because they cooked too much. Nobody keeps a perfect score. That is what family feels like here. It is not constant affection. It is constant inclusion. It is being expected. It is somebody asking where you were. It is a chair appearing before you request one. It is food divided one more time so your plate is full too. 11 years ago, when people asked why I moved, I talked about cost of living. My rent today is 24,000 pesos a month, a little over $400, depending on the exchange rate. Electricity runs higher when I use air conditioning. Groceries are not as cheap as they used to be. Private medical care still requires planning. The exchange rate moves. Visa rules change. Flights home are expensive. The Philippines is not a retirement cheat code. You need savings. You need health coverage. You need patience. You need humility. You need an exit plan and enough money for emergencies. Most of all, you need to arrive without expecting the country to perform gratitude for you. You are the guest. You are the one who must learn. I have seen foreigners come here angry that things are not done the way they are back home. They complain about noise, family obligations, slower service, different standards, and the fact that relationships require time. Then they wonder why they feel isolated. You cannot demand belonging like a customer demanding a refund. Belonging begins when you stop treating every interaction as a transaction. That does not mean being naive. Keep your boundaries. Protect your finances. Verify paperwork. Take relationships slowly. Do not let loneliness make decisions for you, but leave some room for people to surprise you. Let someone bring you soup. Accept the chair. Attend the birthday even when you barely know anyone. Learn the names of the children. Ask about the grandmother in the framed photograph. Stay long enough for people to know whether you take sugar in your coffee. That is how it happened for me. Not through one grand gesture, through thousands of ordinary moments. A ride in the rain. A plate covered with another plate to keep it warm. A text asking whether I got home safely. A hand on my shoulder in a hospital room. A child shouting, "Uncle Robert," from across the street. And that question every evening, "Have you eaten?" I used to hear it as small talk. Now I hear everything inside it. Are you all right? Are you alone? Do you need anything? There is food here. There is room here. You belong here. Tonight, the rain has stopped again. The road is shining. Somebody is cooking garlic nearby. Nestor is older now. So am I. The children who once taught me how to load phone credit have jobs and children of their own. A little boy runs across the lane carrying a red plastic cup. His mother calls after him. He stops at my gate, looks up, and asks the question he has heard his whole life. "Uncle Robert, have you eaten?" I look at the porch, the wet road, the lights coming on in the houses around me. 11 years ago, I came here because I was afraid of running out of money. What I was really running out of was connection. I did not understand that then. I understand it now. I smile at the boy and stand up from my chair. "Not yet," I tell him. And before I can say another word, he waves for me to follow.